Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone around the world. I hope you're doing great out there. Welcome to Studio Memoirs, where I tell stories of all sorts of things that shouldn't really be told, but I'm going to tell them anyway. It was 1997. I was just out of my record deal with Atlantic. I'd finished Tall Blonde Helicopter. I was recording, in the middle of recording my kind of third or fourth solo album called Let's Go Do What Happens. And I was in New York City and I was doing my thing. I had a beautiful house up on 57th Street looking up the George Washington Bridge right up there, right on the river. It was killer until Trump put all them buildings up, and then the view went. And then we had 37th Street Studio with my friends Manny and Ron and Red. We had this like collective studio where we paid for a floor and we built a studio in there. And it was all New Yorky. Outside was the crack dealers and the smoking drains and the New York taxis and it was like Escape from New York. Remember that thing with the Duke of New York? I was the Duke of New York. I had a load of cash. I was doing good. Life was good. Life was real good. And I got a phone call and he said, listen, there's an artist called Lauryn Hill who used to play with a band called the Fugees. And I remember that. I went, I like that track. It was Killing Me Softly. They took an old track and they kind of reworked it in an R&B type way, I think, or in like a dance way or something. And they said she needs you to be at the studios. They have to finish an album. Now, I think what had happened with Lauryn's album is they'd recorded it already, but some of the musicians were refusing to sign off on it because they felt that they deserved some of the songwriting. And so there was a kind of an argument went down. There was something going down. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but there was an argument that had gone down, I think, with the musicians. And so Lauryn called their bluff and, they said, if you don't give us this and this and this, we're not going to sign off on it. So she said, fine. And then she just recorded it again. That's what happened. And I was called in to do that. And so when I went into the studio, first of all, I was the only white guy in there because I was in a studio full of the heaviest jazz cats that New York had to offer. These kind of unbelievable musicians, and it wasn't so much, it wasn't like their technique that you could. It was their musicality. Like they had such musicality, all of them did, and I was way out of my league. Like I realised that when I went in. I think it was prog guys, it was white boys. We get a bit carried away with our weird time signatures, and we go. We play a million miles an hour, and you see like old Guthrie and all them like going for it, and because it comes out of the John McLaughlin, Alan Holdsworth chick, like Aldi Meola. It comes out of that mode, right? And now we've got that young kid who plays with his three fingers. You got that guy. I don't know what his name is. I can't remember, but he's unbelievable. We've got Guthrie doing all sorts of stuff. You got all these people. Doing that, and we like that, we tend to like that, but there's a whole other side to life than that. Like when you get into the R&B world, there's just different mentality. There's different values. They have different values. And I remember when I played with David Sanchez, and David used to come down on the chords in such a beautiful way. Like where he came down was sweeter when I came down. It was just. I don't know what it is. It was just a sweeter thing. He was just beautiful, man. When he played, he was such a beautiful man to do that. To have that sort of beauty inside of you, Because we have all them demons in us, don't we? We have, sometimes you have so many demons inside of you, and like anger and rage, and like it's unfair what happened to us. We get all that stuff, but there's also sweetness in us, and you get to see it, in music a lot, where people play things, or they play things to you, and you go like, wow. How can anybody sing with such beauty than that when they've come from, you see their public persona, they're all like rap artists, or like, you listen to like somebody like T-Pain, listen to some of his melodies. Well, I can put you in a log cabin, jung, jung. It's like where he comes down, it's beautiful, like when he's coming down with the chords. And so I'm in the studio there, and I'm way out of my league, dude. I'm way out of my league, and and it wasn't like anybody would look around and go, "That's terrible." I can play rhythm, and because I kind of pride myself on my rhythm playing rather than any. I'm not really a soloist. I'm a songwriter. I got a bit flash sometimes, but the reality is I'm into melody. I'm not really into like technique and all. I don't really care about it. I like melodies. I love melodies. And nobody would really look at me and go, he's out of his league. But I knew I was way out of my league. like seriously out of my league at this point. And so these guys were in there. I'm sure they knew I was out of my league, and they were just doing their thing, and it was beautiful what they were doing. And I remember, because she was recording it again, Lauryn had 2 studios on the go at the same time. There was 2 studios in the complex, and of course she did, because she's a Gemini. Lauryn's a Gemini. She's got 2 studios on the go, and she was trying to get finished. So, and she literally slept in the studio, the girl. Like every night she just slept. She collapsed at the end of the night after trying to get this album done. I guess she had a deadline or something. And her husband was a guy called Rohan Marley. He was Bob Marley's son. And he was into like I used to talk to him a lot, actually, Rohan, because he was in the waiting room too. We'd just hang out there, and he was a nice guy. And he was into like all this like uppity kind of Rastafarian psychology, like philosophy. Every kind of religion and all that has their uppity version of it. Like, Islam has Sufism. The Christians have like Rosicrucians, and you got like the Jews have like the Kabbalah. And so I guess Rasta had one, and he was talking to me about molecules now were not really here and all that. And I was talking to him about the Seth books, which is the same thing. It was basically the same thing. It was, and I think I tripped him right out saying what I'd said to him, because he didn't realise what he bumped into. Because that's my whole shtick, isn't it? I mean, I love that. That's what I love all that stuff. And so I was blowing his mind out. And Bob Marley as well. You see, one of the things that I thought was interesting about Lauryn's record is where the pocket, where she came down. Where, remember that, girl, you better watch out, that thing. It was the pocket, nothing really matters at all. It's incredibly complex to try and do, but if you're in it, you just do it. It's like a golf swing. It's incredibly complex to explain it what it is, but when you know how to do it, it's almost like it's like doing that. Imagine trying to explain that. You get to here, and then you got to start to smile. Your smile starts round about here, and you go. But when you just do it, there are things like that. That pocket was like that, because I remember Bob Marley with, there's a song called Running Away from Kaya. If you listen to that song, you're running and you're running and you're running away. You're running and you're running, but you can't run away from yourself. The pocket is in every man they got. This burden is the heaviest. That pocket, Marley had it down way back. And it's a pocket. It actually is a pocket. To white people, it sounds like it's just late. Because we're all marching on Poland, like... That's the thing about, the values of the black musicians, especially, like in that, the musicality, like black musicality in America, American musicality. It's absolutely exquisite, man. It really is. It's something else. And so, they can't march on Poland like we can, like that kind of like new wave chug, like dong, 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 dong. Like that's particular to us. Those whiteys, we like all that. But that kind of musicality, like where it's coming, like just where it's coming down, it's like damn. And that pocket that Lauryn came out with on that album, if you listen to it, it's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. So I'm sitting there in the studio, right, and I'm playing my classical guitar, and I'm sitting in the background, right. I've got and I'm practicing my Fernando So stuff, which it's all that. It's doing all that stuff, and I'm practicing. I'm doing that, and there's these bands coming in all the time. I think it was the Wu-Tang Clan. They come in with their, these young girls with like their asses hanging out and all that stuff, and they kind of do. They're talking to each other. They had guns on them, and they're kind of like, yo, motherfucker, what the fuck? They're doing that whole shtick, And I'm in the middle doing that in the background. And I was also decked out to the nines because my girlfriend at the time, Elena, she used to do the supermodels. So I did chart readings for like Naomi Campbell and like Amber Valletta, Heidi Klum, Elena did all like the Project Runway and all that stuff, So, and she had me decked out like a supermodel. So my hair was immaculate. I had these incredibly expensive clothes, designer clothes, and like shoes worth about $1,000 and all this stuff. And so I'm sitting there in the studio, like playing that thing, right? And it's got like, yo, motherfucker, what the fuck? It's, you know, all these like classical guitar music going on in the background. Yo, shit, what's going on, motherfucker? And it just was absolutely surreal. And they were looking at me the whole time. They were looking over at me, watching me all the time. It was like, who's this guy? You know, they're really wary. I was the only white guy in the whole situation. And they're looking at me like, who's this? You know, like, what's going on? And they're doing all this stuff like, yo, man, all these hand signs. And like, yeah, you motherfucker, shit. You know, sorry, I'm not very good at it, but they're doing all that. And I'm sitting doing like classical. And after about half an hour, I got up and I put the guitar down. And they kind of like looked around like that. And I walked to the other side of the studio. And I walked right up to them, like straight up to them. And I went, hey, lads, what the fuck are you talking about? And they all went, yeah, whoa, yeah. And they were laughing their heads off in my accent. What the fuck are you all talking about? That was a great moment. Absolutely great moment. Because they were dead, like nervous. And, you know, they didn't know what was going on. And I walked like right up to them like, what the fuck are you all talking about? That was a good moment. And then Lauryn would sing the chords to me. She would call me and she'd go, Francis. Oh, no, when I was decked out as well. Because I don't know if you've noticed these in black Americans, their clothes, they've got incredibly expensive clothes. I don't know where they get the money from. They're all like decked out to the nines in like designer gear all the time. Stunning clothes, like fucking clean as a whistle. You know, they're all so like that. Like incredibly expensive stuff they've got on. And so I was dressed like that. So I guess like I was one of the brothers at that point because I was dressed the same. And every morning when Lauryn would come in, she'd walk past me and I'd be sitting on the thing because I was always there early. All the black guys were always late. And I walked in and she was already there because she slept there. She goes, every morning, Francis got his thing going on. Like every morning, I love my Francis got his thing going on. Lauryn used to say all the time. And she'd sing the chords to me, and she'd go oop, boop, 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 boop. She just sang the chords. She can't play anything. And I'd say, oh, that's a G9. That's a G9. And then she goes, the next one is boop, 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 boop. I'd say, oh, that's a flat and fifth. She sang the chords to me, and it was unbelievable. She couldn't play a note. And I'd go in there like for half an hour a day, and I'd wait like the extra 10 to 11 hours in the waiting room, just doing that, just practicing my classical guitar, or, you know, I don't know what I was doing, but mostly I was on the guitar, and you know, but when I played, I was out of my league. I was completely out of my league in musicality. Like these guys were just, it's like, you know, I don't. You know, Peter Jones is musical. Like if you see Peter Jones, he's got like he plays that like theatre music where you can't just play that. You've got to be real musical to do that. You know, I see Pete doing his thing. You know, the Merry Vicar. You know, he does that. You know the Merry Vicar song that he does. Like you can't just play that. You got to understand what that is. You have to be. You have to understand the personality of even what it is. Like, and so, you know, people are musical in different. I remember Michael Manring, the bass player who does all his effects thing, he's so musical. It's just such musical stuff. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's something else, man. It's like something else. And these guys were like that in that kind of jazz, blues, R&B type way. They were just absolute monsters, man. They were monsters, this lot. And, you know, I got my ass handed to me on a plate, not by anybody, not because I failed at anything like that. It's just that, like, I was really aware that when I finished that session, wow, that's the real deal, that man. You know, you fucking dude, like, you know, like them guys aren't messing around. And so it was a great time, actually. It was a really good time. And then I didn't know it was going to be a hit. Nobody did. It was just, you know, I knew Lauryn. You know, it sounded new to me. I'd never heard anything like it. You know, they were bringing like guest stars in who I'd heard of, you know, like Killer. What did they call that guy? Let me see if I can find him on the thing. Who sang on the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill? Let me see who sang on it. What was his name? D'Angelo, that was it, D'Angelo. I remember D'Angelo coming in. And Mary J. Blige came in as well. She came in. That was, you know, watching that lot. Damn. I mean, that's something else, you know. That's like a whole other thing. It's just effortless, man. It's like fucking messed up. It's like, you know, it's like everything you're trying to be, but like it was serious. And D'Angelo had a pocket as well. He had like a pocket thing going on. It was unbelievable. But Lauryn, they said she was racist, and she said she was a horrible racist, and she hates white people and all this stuff. She wasn't racist to me at all. Nothing. I thought she was great, old Lauryn. She was full on Gemini. She had her 2 studios going, and she was like run off her feet. That's, you know, the classic Gemini life. She was never nasty to me. She was never inappropriate in or slagging me off or nothing. She was just really nice. She showed me as good as she could. All the engineers, all the guys in there were real nice. Were totally cool. It was, you know, I guess I was a bit like Larry Bird in the NBA. Oh, Larry. You know, it's and so that was one of my stories from Miseducation. I've got some Santana stories. The Santana gig came out of that gig, actually. I was called in to do Santana's album, the Supernatural album. So that I'll tell you about that another time. But who knew? It blew up. It was one of the biggest albums of a long time, the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. So I'm on some pretty big albums. I just wish they were my own. You know, I wish it said Francis Dunnery on the front and I could buy more underpants. You know, so that's it. The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, that's some of the stories going on there. New York, 1997, I think it was, 98 maybe. Just, it was all good. Smoke and drains. There was taxi cabs running around. It was full New York, Trump buildings. I remember all these things like that. And then getting my ass handed to me a plate by a bunch of seriously musical talents, musicians. And I learned a lot. I learned a real lot. It was really good to, very, you know, you get a bit humble when you get put in your place like that. You're always going to get outflanked. It doesn't matter who you are, you know. At some point, somebody's going to come along and outflank you. So it's best to be humble, I think. You know, at one point, I was like a young whiz kid in England, you know, blowing my mouth off all over the place and you know, my left hand. And then they just, you know, then Guthrie shows up. And then this young kid with the thing shows up. And then you see some classical guitar player, some Chinese girl who's about 3. And they go like, and you're just like, all right, you just be happy, you know. You just got to love people and watch what they do. And like, I watched old Guthrie sometimes. I love old Guthrie. I've got some stories about Guthrie too, I'll tell you him. But Guthrie's just outstanding musician. And, you know, on his guitar, I watch him and I'm just thinking like, damn, Guthrie, lad, damn. He can't ride a bike, but he can do that. Unbelievable. I'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching the Studio Memoirs. I hope you enjoyed it. Give me a shout. Press that subscriber. Press it. Press it now. I'm actually not going to get off it till you press it. Go on, press it. Press it. You've got to press it. And keep an old boy happy here. Come on. Help a brother out. All right? Press that subscribe button. And I will see you on the next video. Bye, guys.